Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Monday Night Raw Wrestling Inc. after show starring Triple J, Justin LaBar, Jack Farmer, and Corduroy, Jimmy Korderas, and this is going to be a fun one to chat about tonight. But as everyone settles in and finds their seats, Justin, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Seasons are changing here in Pittsburgh. Chance of snow tomorrow. It could, if snow comes tomorrow, it'll tie the 50-year-ago record of the earliest that snow accumulation has ever hit here in Pittsburgh. So I'm getting that fireplace ready, my friend. It's time for a nice fire here as the wintertime approaches.
Are you a big snow fan?
That's a trick question because I do appreciate snow and I especially if I can hold up and have a fire and you know the right snacks, the right beverages, but to drive in it, especially, you know, I don't know. It depends. If snow's coming and I don't have to go anywhere, yeah, I'm a fan of it.
Right. Yeah, I had to drive through a snowstorm once, and I was like, I'm done with snow. I think I'm over it. Jimmy, though, we've been to the snow, but you were born in it. I can't do a Bane impression. I'm trying to do a Bane impression of the darkness, but you were born in the snow, Jimmy.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, like they say up here in Canada, we have two seasons, winter and construction. So, yeah, we get, mind you, it sounds like Justin's going to get it before we do. We're supposed to possibly get some north of Toronto, believe it or not, up in the burbs, as they say. But because the temperature is going to dip, and there may be some frost on the ground. But that's it for now, at least. But the winters can get hectic up here, and you talk about driving in this weather, you get kind of accustomed to it, I think, but still it's not fun. My thing is shoveling the driveway and the walkway. I just, that's what drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Well, I live in Southern California, so when we get that frigid 60 degrees in the middle of winter, ooh.
You don't even own a jacket, Jack, do you?
No.
See, you know, this is right the world's smallest violin is playing for you.
Yeah. Like, there's a breeze coming through.
You're right.
I'll drive. I mean, I know I can drive in the snow, but I can't control what everybody else is doing. So there's that. I mean, like, and then you shove it. So it's like, you know, my dad's like, you know, just get a snow blower, and it's like, well, it's like where he lives. You know, he's in Chesapeake Beach, Maryland. So on the if they do get snow, he has areas to blow the snow. I'm like, I don't have. If I blow the snow, I'm pushing onto somebody else's yard and house. I don't have anywhere to blow it to. I gotta shovel it up.
That'd be great. Just, your neighbor's snow is all twice as high as yours, and you have none. And you're like, I don't know how I did that.
I have no idea.
If I didn't like my neighbors, I'd go with that strategy. But I like both that are on each side of me, so it's kind of a problem.
Well, we got some news to chat about today, fellas. Let's start with the news about how Raw was ran today with Triple H. He's under the weather, so he was away from Raw today, but the show must go on. And PW Insider is reporting that Triple H's fellow D-Generation X partner, Road Dogg Brian James, will be taking his place as the point person for tonight's show. Ed Koski and Michael Hayes will also be involved in the creative process, while longtime WWE official Bruce Pritchard is absent from the show, having had a previous vacation planned before Levesque came down with COVID. This was, it's being reported that it's very much a team effort, but Jimmy, I once heard that Vince McMahon says you should make it so that someone else can do your job in case you can't be there. And it sounds like that's what happened tonight, because we got a show. And if you didn't know any better, it would have seemed like business as usual, even though it seems like all the top guys were out.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it skipped a beat as far as the creative process went. And they seem to be on the same path, and things seem to move smoothly, for lack of a better term. And I think a lot of it has to do with, yes, Hunter is under the weather, and we're all wishing him and his family the best, that everything is cool. But, you know, in today's world of modern technology, even though he can't be live there and present, he could still have his voice heard very easily. It's not like you have to be on a phone now and, hey, pass me over to, you know what I mean? Like the old days. I know you young folks out there don't remember those days, but now he's there pretty much watching you. He could be in gorilla on video. You know what I mean? So I'm sure he had an influence, but the thing I find astounding is how years ago people were so upset with DX and the Click and all these guys, and now all of a sudden, look who's running the business right now.
It's crazy. I do imagine, to your point, I imagine like an assistant running around with an iPad with FaceTime on and Triple H's face on it, and them running around doing his work for him with the face there. But Justin, this kind of goes to show that WWE is a well-oiled machine, and it'll work out one way or the other.
Yeah, well-oiled. I mean, Ed Koskey is one of the longest, if not the longest, tenured official writer. Michael Hayes has been there forever as a talent and producer, and then eventually a writer. Obviously Road Dogg and exec now. I mean, yeah, this is great too because, as Jimmy said, the technology. I mean, you can set up a Zoom or Microsoft Teams or a FaceTime or whatever, and literally he could interact in real time, Triple H, with everybody as they do walk in a gorilla and give them live feedback just as if he was there in person. So that's, that goes a long way. We're not chasing down landlines anymore. And I think one of the biggest takeaways with this is that's good is that, Triple H couldn't be there tonight, obviously unplanned because of COVID, but, he's the guy who's going to be in charge of the day-to-day creative, for the next, 20, 30 years. Right. And he has his family, his wife, he has his daughters. And so I think this is good to show that, like, look, he could still be present. He can still, Vince had different kind of mentality, as we always hear. Vince didn't miss too much work. He didn't take too many vacations. Triple H could still maybe take a few more vacations, take a few more personal days, be at home and still try to be working, but can do it remotely. I think this is good to show that, hey, look, this show early on in his new regime still had that fresh feel, still felt like it had his fingerprints on it for all the things that we'll talk about, but yet he didn't have to be there present. He could be at home. Obviously, again, this is for health reasons, but I think that's a great sign. And you let off with Vince. Jack, I'm pretty sure Vince is, I think, first off, I don't believe Vince believes in getting sick. He stays in control of his own health. And then if somebody else is sick, I believe it's, well, if you can be sick at home, why can't you just be sick at work?
Right. Well, Vince never got sick because even germs were afraid of him. So
yeah, I was about to say, I imagine a virus getting close to Vince, and be like, nah, and like go to someone else. He's Vince, like, how come everyone around me gets sick, but I never get sick?
Vince always figured he evolved faster and better than any virus could.
Well, speaking of Vince, on his Monday Mailbag with Mike Chioda podcast, the former WWE referee acknowledged that the sordid circumstances surrounding Vince McMahon's departure from the company forced the abrupt end to his leadership, adding, "It's just sad." And then went on to say, "I'm sure he'll come back, hopefully in another year or so, maybe next year at WrestleMania. Give it a little bit of time, and then hopefully he gets the right send-off he deserves for running a major company and employing people like myself for 35 years. Jimmy, do you think it's possible for Vince McMahon to have a proper send-off, as they say?
See, that's a tough one. And I don't want to sound like I'm trying to weasel my way out of this because it is a tough subject right now. Right now, let's just say that there are accusations made against Vince. Nothing has been, obviously they were talking about the money being paid out and that sort of stuff, but he hasn't been charged with anything yet. It's still pretty much an investigation. That being said, in today's day and age, it's a little more difficult to bring someone back under those circumstances and give them the public send-off that, let's put it this way. You could say whatever you want about Vince McMahon, but the business would not be where it is right now if it were not for Vince McMahon. And you can make the argument that maybe somebody else could have done it, but do we know that for a fact? No, we don't. Vince is the one who made the WWF at the time elevated to a point where it became must-see television for wrestling fans and drawing in a new audience as well, because wrestling was pretty much a niche product back in the day. You were either a wrestling fan or you didn't understand or you didn't get the appeal or whatever the case may be. Vince elevated the business to it would be nice to see him get his just reward, especially at a WrestleMania, and get inducted into a Hall of Fame or something like that, whatever the case may be. But it just said, I think there are too many people right now that may not appreciate him making a public case and people speaking highly of him at this time right now. That's the only problem.
Yeah, Justin, I got to imagine from the wrestling world standpoint, I feel like you got to do something for Vince, but in this day and age, is it possible?
Yeah, again, it's tricky because, look, Vince kind of stepped aside just quick enough before this could have got even. I mean, like for all intents and purposes at the moment, Vince has kind of been at least for now has been, as they say today, he's been canceled, right?
Mm-hmm.
He kind of his wasn't maybe as loud or as drawn out as maybe others. Like his he kind of just. But I don't know if Kyoto's ever going to get that. I don't know. As Mike Kyoto's saying that Vince deserves a send off. I don't know if we're ever going to get that send off of Vince because first off, I don't even know if Vince would accept it. Vince is a guy who it's kind of known that like he never wanted to be inducted in the Hall. He didn't want to be somebody who's on the Hall of Fame stage giving a speech. I think everybody kind of figures if Vince ever goes into the WWE Hall of Fame, it'd be after he's deceased. So I just feel like even if they felt like dust has settled or accusations have settled, whatever, that they want to do. So I don't know if he would accept such. And you say deserving. Look, obviously, Vince was an incredible pioneer. Pro wrestling / sports entertainment would not be where it is today without him. And there's so many other things. That's a week-long podcast. But we have to look at the past and the people who've gotten canceled for decisions that they've made coming to light. Maybe a movie producer or an actor or what have you brought some great pieces of work and entertainment and art that help progress their genre. But if they get found accused or guilty of whatever they're accused or guilty of, we still don't invite them to the Oscars now anymore to, what I mean? It's just, so that I think that's kind of where I'm going. How this Vince thing turns out, we don't know, but I would just find it hard based upon all the situation that we see him being celebrated, for lack of a better term, on WWE programming, just because that might seem, while in a wrestling category, yes, that could be deemed really inappropriate or maybe even tone deaf in other categories.
Right. Because there's also at this point shareholders and things too. I think it's one thing when you're the guy running day to day, but once you've been out to come back in, it becomes a different scenario too. But it is weird though, because I mean, come on, everything we know about pro wrestling at this point in America is built off the back of what I mean. He built the Hall of Fame.
And also I think look at the PR though. No, there's nobody. It's not like. And again, Vince doesn't care about these kind of things. He does. That's why he doesn't. So like there's no question of like, oh, was Vince the one that was actually responsible for WrestleMania being the what it is 30 plus years? No, there's no question of that. So what's the PR value of doing it? If Triple H and company already had the obstacle they had to deal with over the summertime, which I think they've handled it, and I think they've kind of cleared the hurdle already. There was Ariel Helwani even asked Triple H this pretty bluntly. We all wondered, like, okay, is Vince really gone? Can we really imagine a WWE that he's alive, walking this earth, that he's really not making decisions? He's not in a dark room somewhere using the technology that we just discussed a second ago to make sure. And Triple H and company said, no, we are in charge. It's moved on. And I think it's pretty clear of all the things we talk about every week that there's definitely new direction, new policy. And so I think they cleared that hurdle pretty quickly, which could have been troublesome had they not been so blunt in their changes. So I think the moment you bring Vince back and you put him on TV, even just to celebrate him, you then restart the PR cycle of, oh, he's back now. And the first thing creatively that happens that fans majority don't like, oh, Vince is back in charge. PR wise, I don't think it's worth it. There's no question of who Vince. So why even risk it? Just, we all know his legacy's there forever in terms of what he did for the business. Let it be.
Jimmy, you've met the guy. What is Vince doing with his free time?
I don't even know if Vince has any free time. He's well, now he probably does, but at the same time, Vince is a guy who always kept busy, always kept going. He
playing Fortnite now.
Yeah, everybody used to joke that Vince never slept. And it almost felt that way. He's just a go guy. I can't imagine what it's like for him not to be going into the office every day and not being at TV and running around and doing all this. And who knows? He's probably saying, keep me up to date on what's going on. But as Justin said, you can tell that his influence is now not there. It at least doesn't appear to be, because the show has gone in a completely different direction. And we're seeing, I guess, for lack of a better term, the benefits of a new creative direction that the company is taking under H's.
I'm gonna guess that he's just added another workout to the day.
That's probably real.
At least
he's probably has to get like 2 personal trainers now because they can't keep up with him in the weight room. I would like a reality show of just Vince McMahon at home with nothing to do and him just getting on everyone's nerves because he's bored.
Oh my goodness.
That would be fantastic. But let's
he's like over the shoulder. He's got his personal chef. He's like over the shoulder of the chef, like staring, like that's not how you make the eggs. Or he's notorious. Or a steak, right? He's like, you're burning it. You're destroying the cow. Like
you gotta flip it.
I just put it on. Yes, that's it. Flip it.
And the chef's like, I've been doing this for you for the last 25 years. Trust me, I know it's gonna turn out. And like, but now Vince is seeing how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Right.
And he's just approving all the way around.
Right.
He's like measuring the lawn with like a ruler now. Like, is this exactly how tall it's supposed to be?
He supervises the limo get the limousine going to get its oil check every 3 months.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Just everyone's like, go back to work. Just get out of here.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to get into this show. But before we do, as always, thank you to everyone who's listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, or watching on YouTube. Thank you for leaving a comment, sharing, subscribing, 5-star reviewing. And if you're in the chat, thank you so much for being with us live, whether it's Trust Almighty, Iron Meds VR, Ethan Cruz, Baby Ice, Dream Realm Studios, George Bartley, Dylan Matthews, the GIF King, and KCJ. And also I saw Isis in the chat, probably here to admit that Logan Paul is the greatest celebrity wrestler of all time. That's why he's getting a title shot and Bad Bunny isn't. Ha!
Wow.
Thank you to everyone.
Maybe Vince is following Bad Bunny around on tour. He just discovered who Bad Bunny was in the last year. Made some money off Bad Bunny. Maybe he's like a groupie on the tour of Bad Bunny now, or he's advising Bad Bunny.
He's like getting mad at everyone there, trying to direct them and how to do their show. You got to get bigger, Bad Bunny. Everyone wants to see muscly guys perform on stage.
Yeah.
Speaking of muscly guys, we start the show off with Bobby Lashley in the ring. And it's like as cold open as you can get. He's in the middle of talking, saying he wants to take on Brock Lesnar. Brock comes out, and even though security and the locker room are all trying to stop him, Lashley still just destroys the Beast Incarnate. Justin LaBar, I posed this on Twitter, but I got to ask you, has anyone else single-handedly destroyed Brock Lesnar like that?
I mean, we've seen, we've seen Brock in some feuds with The Undertaker where things looked pretty real, more real than normal with things with Taker and Backstage and Cena. I don't know if I could answer definitively and say like this was the most dominated that Brock has ever been, somebody's ever been on Brock, but it was impressive nonetheless. You said cold open, absolutely. They have Lashley mid-sentence, so it gives off that feel that like Lashley's blowing off the stagehands. He's not even going to wait for the cues of we're on live TV. He just wants to get out there and get this off his chest and get it going. So that felt good. Brock comes out, of course, no talking needed. They just start fighting, and Lashley gets the better of him. He needed to physically retaliate in order to make this feel like a fight that you need to see at Saudi Arabia. Otherwise, we can't have Brock just come out and just whip him again. So I loved it. I loved the intensity and the temperature and the tempo of this all so quickly. I mean, it was 8:05. It was I guess you're on West Coast time, but it was 5 minutes in. And we went to the first commercial, but they had already packed so much in, not in a bad way, not in the 20-pound, 10-pound bag that Jimmy would say, but they just hit you right out the gate. I mean, they hit you right in the mouth and said, look at this. So I thought this was an excellent way to start. Going back to our feeling of creatively, this felt like in line with the direction we've been moving in terms of trying different things and really never letting one show start any bit in resemblance to the most previous show.
And that was exactly what I was going to pass it off to Jimmy with, is that, in the past, we've definitely had such a history of you get this exact open every time and this exact, it kind of plays out the same way. Each week, this is different. And this felt totally different than the previous weeks. And it immediately engaged me.
No, it immediately engaged me too, because I thought, wait a minute, they just came up and like Justin said, Bobby was like in mid-sentence, and I'm like, did they come on the air a little later than expected up here in Canada? Because we have a different, maybe a different feed going on up here. It just felt, but it worked. It absolutely worked, and him calling out, Brock, and then getting into that brawl and really getting into it. it looked and felt personal, and that's what I liked about it the most. And like Justin said, I don't know if anybody has gotten that much offense on a beatdown of Brock. Like, of course, people have been getting their stuff in on Brock, but to beat him down and leave him almost laying for, man, setting up that match for Saudi Arabia, it couldn't have been done any better. Yes, it felt like it went by quickly, like Justin said, but at the same time, they didn't try to stuff in too much. You know what I mean? And it left you curious now. Whoa, how is Brock going to retaliate to this? What are we going to see? Is something going to happen in the next week or so? You know what I mean? Making you anticipate seeing it. They want you to see. They want you to come back and check out what happens. And I'm curious to see what happens as well. So they got me.
And just to add another level to curiosity to this match between Bobby and Brock is obviously we saw Brock at SummerSlam and the famous, tip the ring over and again, SummerSlam was basically 6 days after or a week after, whatever it was, the creative handoff of Vince stepping down. So it was a show that, again, Triple H and company inherited. They had Brock's match. They had to figure out a finish, and they gave us a very creative finish. But this Brock and Bobby match coming up here, this is the first in the new creative regime and direction of, okay, where do we want this to go? What is next for Bobby? What's next for Brock? So, we've seen how Brock's been used kind of in his situations, again, under Vince, basically. I'll be very interested to see who wins this, because I don't know. A lot of times I don't really bet against Brock, but I don't know. I'll be very curious to see how they book it, who wins and how so, as an indicator of plan. Because you look, WrestleMania season's just around the corner after we get through these next couple shows here in the fall. So, you'd think you'd have both Brock and Bobby heavily involved in Mania season. So you don't want to, you don't want to dump cold water on either of them, so to speak.
Right. We got a few super chats here that kind of sum up the show for a few people. Mia Lee saying in the chat, Raw was pretty good. AJ was fire on the mic. Bobby, a beast. Bianca, the fifth horsewoman. Cora would fit right in with Judgment Day and hashtag JBL. Mia, all good points. We're going to get through all of them, but Bobby, a beast. Obviously, we just talked about that. But we also got one from Nightmare Knee who says, I love the plucky underdog. Rollins has overcome all the odds. Bobby looked like a chump. Riddle 2, shake my head. The reason I read this here instead of waiting until the end is, one, I don't want Nightmare Kane to wait the entire show to get to his super chat. But I also add it because I don't think Bobby looks like a chump. I mean, I think the way they've done this, and Justin, I want you to chime in here. I've forgotten all about the fact that he lost the title. I feel like he's already back at monster status. Exactly.
Right. He's not in a title match, but he's going toe to toe, he's standing toe to toe going against Brock. I mean, yeah, I don't think Bobby looks bad in any way of this. Had Brock come out and whipped him around again, then I'm like, all right, what are we doing here? But Bobby came back and got his retaliation.
Like I said, it wasn't just that he beat him, but like security tried to separate him, and then he came back and then took out Brock. I think is a pretty big.
A nice touch, Jimmy. Did you catch this? I like a few nice touches. Yeah, they had referees and then security. I liked Alpha Academy is up next, so they are in logic. They're behind the curtain getting ready. So they in their heels. They're out there trying to stop Bobby the babyface from attacking heel Brock. Shelton Benjamin's out there. Shelton Benjamin, who was one of the, who was a true friend of Brock, former roommates. I thought that was a nice little touch, and I was like, could we see a Shelton Benjamin Bobby Lashley match either before Crown Jewel or something that they spin off just as a little extra? I mean, Shelton's a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal performer, not used nearly enough. I thought that was an interesting touch that they had Shelton Benjamin out there in the scrum in Bobby's face trying to back him off.
No, it was an interesting touch. Having yes, we've seen where referees and producers and security come out, but to have actual, some members of the locker room come out, and I know you pointed out some specific ones, which is cool, but it's just having members of the locker room come out to help ease tensions or calm things down or try to get control of the situation makes it feel that much more like a heated situation, and I like that about it too.
And I would love to see Shelton Benjamin, by the way, get a good run in some way, another run. He's so good. By the way, I don't know why I don't realize this, but if you've seen him in person, he's darn near as big as Bobby Lashley is. Why don't we think of him as a big dude? He's huge.
Yeah, he's a big dude. It's because he's not like, monstrous muscles. He's just a big dude.
Yeah,
in great shape. Don't get me wrong. He's not like he's in great shape, but man, he's deceptively big.
I think it's because he can move fast too. So you go, oh, he's fast. He's agile. So I don't think of him as big, but he's put together.
Yeah, he's not broad. He's not broad like Bobby or Brock is. He's kind of lengthy, but he's muscular. When Shelton came up in the crowd that he was in the crowds of the Brock Lesnars, the Dave Batistas. So we don't think of him as a big guy, and he's not, as we would say, traditionally big guy, but he is no small man at that. I mean, he's just, and then that I'm referencing 22 years ago, and 22 years later, he still looks phenomenal in the shape that he's in.
Yep.
Nightmare Nia responds, said, sorry, I missed that part. You're right. That's worth bringing up, though. Always worth. That's what the conversation's about. That's what makes it fun. Chat and pro wrestling. But then we also got a question from Social Justice Logic saying, do you think Raw is missing main event star power since the world title storylines are being mainly progressed on SmackDown? Jimmy, I feel like Raw has been fantastic the past couple of months, but what say you when it comes to the world title not being represented as much?
You can make a case for that, but at the same time, I believe that right now they're in the process of elevating the United States Championship, and right now the United States Champion is Seth Rollins, and we will get to him later on because he was in the main event match, and he is, in my opinion, a main event player. And a guy like Bobby can be a main event player. They have guys that can fill that bill, but right now, I know everybody's looking at Roman Reigns, and I like the fact that there is one champion for the entire WWE brand as opposed to SmackDown World Champion or Universal Champion or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I agree. I like one. But we continue on. You mentioned Alpha Academy, and they have the next match. They have a match against the OC. The OC's got new music that I liked, but we get a good start for a re-debuting team with a win over a team that's both over and beatable, so it works out great. Post-match comes Judgment Day, and Finn talks about how he has passed creating the OC, and how at Crown Jewel it's going to be OC versus Judgment Day. So, hey, we got a match made. And later tonight, it's going to be AJ Styles versus Dominik Mysterio. We will talk about that match down the road. But, Justin, what I loved about this segment here is, as we like to say, a lot of business got done very quickly.
Yeah, indeed. And, obviously Gallows and Anderson in the back, so get them out there. Of course, get them a win. Give them their entrance, give them their music, give them presentation. This was, I don't want to say short and sweet, but as you said, just a lot got done. Don't overthink it. Keep it simple.
Jimmy, this was Gallows and Anderson back in WWE. Are you a fan of the OC being back? Are you glad they're here?
Yeah, I was a fan of them before. I have been a fan of them for a long time, regardless of where they are. And, and it's not just because I'm Luke is a good buddy, but at the same time, they're a good tag team. And you know what? You could tell that at least in my opinion, I felt that I could see it in the way they presented themselves, that they were happy to be back. They were enjoying being in that ring and doing what they love to do. And I think it showed.
Is it interesting, Jimmy, that they seem to be the good guys in this situation? I don't really remember them being good guys at any point, really.
Well, they are friends with AJ Styles, so it's not a problem having them be the good guys in this situation, and it can work unless they for some reason have something in store down the road. But for right now, I think they work fine as a babyface tag team.
Yeah, their natural personalities are, especially Gallows, I think leads the way, but they have so much. They are real life buddies, all three of them. Gallows and Anderson especially, they are real life best friends. And so, kind of what we saw on the backstage thing with Cameron Grimes, who's the, a goofy, lovable face from NXT. I think things like that kind of help convince the audience that these guys are kind of goofy. I think the more that we let them kind of do their, like Gallows, he did a little Carney speak saying, "Oh, is this the guy with the kizash?" And they started talking about needing the money and good brother. They're all the lingo that they actually use. If they're allowed to use that lingo and just do themselves on camera, that will help translate to the audience, and that will separate them from what they maybe weren't allowed to do on their previous run and how they were booked.
Yep.
If and when we saw them on TV, because they had gaps of time where they just weren't on TV.
Right, and not to get off topic, but and to move forward, the segment afterwards, I'm really impressed with Dominik right now because I think he's starting to find his way with the Judgment Day group, and very impressed with his promo ability tonight. It seems that he's starting again to find his way.
Yeah, we'll talk about the match in a little bit, but that segment, Jimmy, that you're talking about, and him on the microphone, he has grown in leaps and bounds, it seems, on the microphone. And I'm wondering how much of it is just natural because he's been doing it for a while now, or how much of it is because now that he's stepped away from his dad, and it is kind of sink or swim for him. And so he is starting to pick this up. But it seems like in just the past 2 months, he's come a very long way on the microphone. Justin, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Dom's microphone presence as of late.
Yeah, I think it's a case of, it's finding out who you are and then experiencing it once when it works really well. For a while he was Ray's son. He was Ray's son. That's his identity. So, there's limitations within that. There's the proverbial shadow to that. Now that he's branched off on his own in terms of being a heel away from his dad, and he's got this heel group of supporting cast, we've talked about how he's gotten some of the biggest heat on the show where, he just grabs the mic and then the crowds won't even let him speak. I think once you experience that as a heel, you're like, oh my God, this is the reactions I've been waiting for. It's heel or face. You just want the crowd to pop and make a lot of noise. Once you experience that, then all of a sudden, all that advice you get told of slow down, take your time, take an extra few beats before you say this, make them wait. It's gonna drive them nuts. You can hear it. Same thing about your ring work. You can hear, slow down, take your time, make an extra facial expression to the crowd before you hit the next move. You can hear all of it, but it still might not feel natural. Still might feel like you're going against your instincts but once you do it and you hit it once and you're like, oh my God, all of a sudden it becomes a little more, now you're not so afraid to do it again and try again. I think that's where we're at with him. I think Dom has finally realized he's got, he's turned on his dad, and now the crowd has bought into it. They have bought into Dominik as a heel, and they want to see him get his ass kicked eventually by his dad, which I'll get to later is going to come. And so, yeah, I think he's now taking ownership. He's got less fear when he grabs that mic. He's got a little more confidence that he knows he's going to get the reaction that he's supposed to get.
And I'm just going to pair together two backstage segments because they go together. And now that I'm pairing them, I'm realizing just how interconnected they are and how kind of cool it is that they did this. Cora Jade is backstage, and she asks Rhea Ripley to represent her in the Pick Your Poison match on NXT. But the people that were across from her in the ring recently, the Good Brothers, they get approached by Cameron Grimes to help him out on NXT as well. Kind of a fun little tied loop there between all that. But Jimmy, I want to ask you about what WWE is doing, having NXT wrestlers ask for help from the main roster, and just sort of how you feel that reflects on the NXT wrestlers and how that helps NXT, hurts NXT, or your opinion on that.
No, I don't think it really hurts NXT. It does maybe draw some new eyes to the NXT product if they see NXT wrestlers coming up to the main roster and getting some of the main roster talent down to NXT. I think if it does draw new eyes to the product, the NXT product, which can let's be honest, they could afford to have a few extra bodies watching their show, and it never hurts. Why not? I don't have a problem with it, and I don't really think that it makes the NXT roster look weaker in any regard.
I'm not a big fan of the they should have done, but I do feel a little bit like it would have been nice if at least one of these people said to either Cameron Grimes or to Cora Jade, I'll help you if you help me. And then they did something like that. So it's a little bit more tit for tat instead of just, okay. But I'm splitting hairs.
And real quick, let's bring up something that I guess maybe could have last minute been tossed in the news, but as you bring up NXT. So tomorrow night's interesting. We have NXT, this final go-home show of NXT before their Halloween Havoc event. We have AEW Dynamite on Tuesday night going up against it. But because of rain, we have the Cleveland Guardians and the New York Yankees Major League Baseball playoff game tonight got postponed and pushed to tomorrow for a 4:00 start on TBS. Now that could work out as a very positive impromptu lead-in for Dynamite to have a major playoff baseball game involving the Yankees leading in. You know, normally your television Major League Baseball game is about 3 hours if everything goes smoothly. So if it starts at 4:05 or whatever, you know, it's done by 7:05, and you know you can get some lead in, some promo material before Dynamite. But God forbid if there's any delay or extra innings tomorrow, all of a sudden now Dynamite, which is supposed to now it flips to the opposite way where it's a terrible situation where Dynamite might either get preempted or they throw it on a different Turner network last minute, and now you got to search to find where it is, or your DVR gets screwed up or whatever. So very interesting TV situation to watch tomorrow, late afternoon, early evening. Could be a really good thing for AEW. Could be a really tipsy situation for them.
Well, let me double back on that because I have a question for you, Justin. Is AEW has been very proud of the fact that they have beaten NXT in the ratings when they were head to head. Now Dynamite goes to a new date. Now, number for number, Dynamite beats NXT regularly, but this is a different day. As you mentioned, there might be some time shenanigans that happen with the baseball game. It's very possible NXT beats Dynamite tomorrow. If that happens, is that a bit of a black eye on AEW? Does AEW have to win?
They don't have to. I mean, they don't have to because, again, now, you know, NXT has been moved to Tuesday now for what has it been, a year and a half, 2 years? So, you know, NXT's new home has been Tuesday. So, quite frankly, NXT is the one that needs to be. If Dynamite comes over on this Tuesday and does a better number, I think that's a big win for Dynamite, and I think that's what they're aiming for. Hence, why we have advertised, you know, this title match. I think Tony Khan would love nothing more than to then be able to wake up Wednesday morning and tweet, "We moved over on a different night and beat NXT." So, you know, that's how I look at this. Here is that's how it is.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Very fair.
I feel like it's very it's going to be interesting because again, I typically Dynamite wins, but they're playing with a bit of a handicap on Tuesday. So I
don't think because AEW is coming in on this Tuesday one-off, I don't think that it's an accident that we are listing all of these Raw and SmackDown superstars that are going to make an appearance.
Exactly.
And that we gave valuable Raw time to tune in tomorrow to NXT because, you know, NXT needs to, they should own their Tuesday night slot here.
Right. And just for those who happen to be in Canada, next week, Raw here in Canada is moving from its regular home to a different channel just for one night because of some baseball playoffs.
You can't believe you can't just keep it on the same channel up there in Canada. Get your TV programming together, Jimmy. Who do you got to call?
Yeah, who are you going to call?
I'm just glad that we don't have the dog show interrupting us anymore.
Oh, good.
That was always, I love dogs, but that was always hell in the 90s. Always bummed me out.
That was the worst too, because it was before the internet. So I never really knew when it was happening. And I would just tune in. I'm like, oh, it's this week.
I mean, like, you know, like Jack, growing up, it's like you were one of the few kids, if you're a wrestling fan, who, you know, you didn't dread a Monday. Everybody dreaded the weekend ending and going to school and it's Monday. Yeah, I didn't dread Monday because I had Raw that night. I had wrestling that night. But then that few times a year where you got excited for Monday because you got to go home and we're waiting for 8:05 for Raw to start, and then you got to watch tennis or a dog show. You're like, somebody just screwed me here. Now and then you got you got to get up to go to school Tuesday. And you got to wait until next Monday for the damn show. Come on.
And I would always watch way more of the dog show than I should, hoping that it was almost over and that maybe it was going to wrap up and like Raw would start.
I wasn't that much of a mark. I knew once I saw the dogs just to check out for the night.
Right.
I'd be like, come on, this is the last event, right? No.
It was dog show, then La Femme Nikita's coming back after that.
Wow.
Oh, those were the days. That was the Monday night. The Monday night 1-2 punch, Raw into La Femme Nikita.
Right.
Or silk stockings. Take your pick.
Yeah.
Silk stockings. I think it was La Femme Nikita, then silk stockings.
Yeah. Or I mean, I think there was Pacific Blue at a time where they were on the bikes.
That was definitely after Heat. Monday. That was a Sunday night Heat after show with Mario Lopez.
Right.
In any case, we got Seth Rollins coming out in a red suit, and he says the people who doubted him can kiss his red butt, but he appreciates those that sing his song. Says he'll have the greatest U.S. title run of all time, and he only tapped because he had the title match on Raw, which I loved because he made it sound like he justified his loss. But Ali comes out, and he wants a title shot, and Rollins sucker punches him. They fight, but it's Rollins standing tall. Later, Riddle says that if he wins the title, he'll give Ali a title shot. Justin, is Seth Rollins having the greatest U.S. title run of all time?
Probably since John Cena, when John Cena did the open challenge. I mean, I don't. That's probably been this is the best one since. Yeah, you know, I mean, we'll talk about when we get to the main event later. There's some things I like about the personnel, what they're doing. I'm not crazy about like Ali being like, you know, I was owed a title shot from Bobby, and then Riddle's like, well, I'll give you one. I mean, it's kind of like, all right, you know, makes Ali look like he needs these handouts of charity to. He needs these other, you know, integrity-filled baby faces to hand him title shots. So I wasn't crazy about that, but he did try to redeem himself later, which we'll get to.
Yeah, Jimmy, didn't Ali have a title shot against Bobby Lashley? Am I mistaken that? Didn't he? I could swear they had a match. Maybe I'm mistaken.
If they did, I don't remember. And that's the thing. Justin, did they have a match?
They had a match a few weeks ago. I don't remember if it was for the title, but they had a match.
Right.
Because Bobby won.
Because Ali was backstage, and and then like Bobby won, but like Bobby showed him respect. Like Ali like earned his respect, took him to a limit. I don't remember if it was for a title. I don't remember if it was for the title or not, but they had a match.
See, but there's my point now. As talented as Mustafa Ali is, that I had to ask if they had that match previously, because it didn't stand out to me. It didn't stick with me. It didn't stay in here. It's like one of those situations where you can remember the words to every 80s song that you liked, but you can't remember why you went down to the kitchen. You know what I mean? That's how it felt with in this situation. And like I said, he's a great talent. He's awesome in the ring. He can do a lot of stuff. There's something missing for me to get invested in him.
I think for me, it's because he's had a few character changes over the past few years. And so I feel like every time I see him, I'm still trying to think, okay, but which version of Ali am I getting? Am I getting the one that wears the light up mask? Am I getting Retribution? Am I getting tag teaming with Mansoor? Am I getting, so for at least that's for me, is I'm like, what variation of Ali is this? Tony Starks.
Real quick, I have to shout out, and on Twitter tonight, T-Bar, he's still listed as T-Bar on Twitter, tweeted out how much he hates Mustafa Ali, which I thought was just hilarious because obviously they're linked from their Retribution hits.
Right. Good for T-Bar for keeping it going. Until you get a new name, you got to keep working it.
There you go.
Tony Starks in the chat says, I appreciate Mustafa Ali being highlighted tonight. In my opinion, top 5 talent in the business. It's time for him to shine now. So Tony Stark's a big fan of Ali. I think when Ali cuts, Ali can cut a good promo. He's done good backstage videos before. But again, for me, I feel like I need to know which version of him I'm seeing at this point. Justin, any hot takes on Ali before we talk about him at the end of the show?
I think he's got. I respect the fact that he's been very vocal, and I think he's got a great background, a story. I think he's got a story to tell. I respect the fact that he has been vocal. He stood up to management and creative previous regime of like, you're not going to just. You're not just going to pin me with another stereotypical character. All right, my screen name is Mustafa Ali. I look the way I have the name I have. I look the way I look. You're not going to just throw a turban on me, and
right.
That's that thing. Right. I respect that, and he does have actually a very interesting backstory of who he is, former police officer, and what he stands for. So I'm all for them creatively trying to present him in a new way. I'll just say that, and I don't care if he's heel or face. I'm not saying he can't be a heel. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying let's let it be new, right? Let's let it be something with a new, fresh take,
right. Well, it looks like he'll get a shot at it, as we'll talk about later tonight. But we got a tag team match: Io Sky and Dakota Kai versus Candice LeRae and Bianca Belair. Bayley was on commentary, and this all breaks down when Bayley grabs a kendo stick and Bianca tries to stop her, leaving Candice alone with Damage Control, who eventually get the win here. Jimmy, I want to talk to you about Bayley on commentary, because she blew me away in the way she was able to be the Bayley character, do commentary, and actually build up Candice LeRae while she was out there talking about all the things Candice LeRae did. And it's something I realize a lot of times wrestlers who are great, even when they're great on the microphone, they get on commentary and sometimes it doesn't work for me. But Bayley crushed it, I thought. Well, any thoughts on that?
No, I thought she was absolutely fine doing the job she needed to do and did it very well. And you're right. It's different going out and cutting a promo and being on commentary, trying to tell a story. Those are two completely different things. And Bayley, I think, excelled tonight in her position, telling her story, progressing the story along and commentating on the match as well, and doing all she needed to do to help get that match over and also get her story over at the same time. It was a combination of things that she handled, I think, very well. You're right. I agree with you, Jack.
So Justin, Io Sky and Dakota Kai get the win, as they probably should here, and this one continues on. Do we see an opponent for them for the tag team titles at this point?
I'm not sure. I enjoyed Bayley, as we all just said here on commentary. Damage Control is one of those things where, like, I popped for the moment of the three of these ladies appearing at SummerSlam and the surprise factor. It's kind of running a little I'm not. It's not my most. I'm not looking forward to it. I don't know. I need. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Fresh coat of paint. Because again, they're kind of a fresh group, but I'm just not buying into it as much. I popped again, but the return, but I'm not. Just buying into them.
I don't mind. I don't mind the. Sorry to cut you off there, Jack. I don't mind the name Damage Control, but I wish they would refer to the tag champs as Kai and Sky.
Make it easier to say.
Yeah. Just anyway.
I think with Damage Control, I don't think they did anything wrong as far as how it's gone, but it feels like maybe they got to the top. They got to their destination a little too quickly, and now there's nowhere for them to go. I think, like, they kind of just showed up, became the champs, got the title shot, and now it's like, what's next? As opposed to having groups for them to go to. Like, Judgment Day has had the luxury of having people they could have rivalries with and matches with, and now if Finn was to go after a title, or if they were to do tag team titles, it would feel like they've got room to move, where they won the titles, but I don't know who's going to take it from them. And now Bayley's already gotten the title shot, so does she just get another one? Like, what do they do?
And I think there's something to that, Jack, in terms of they might have rushed them getting to the destination for the purpose of, okay, we want Damage Control to be in the driver's seat for a women's war games that we're going to do at Survivor Series. So this is moving faster than what feels natural, just so we can, serve up a certain matchup for a certain gimmick and stipulation, in November. I think there's probably something to that, and that might be part of my disconnect.
Yeah. We got another super chat, by the way, about Ali, and it's from Dylan Matthews, who says Ali wins the U.S. title in Saudi.
I don't know if I see that happening.
Yeah, first off, I don't know why Seth would have to drop it anyways. But Dylan, this goes back to my point. Like, does Ali win because you're saying it's a major event that is a pay-per-view or a premium live event, and so that makes it a big deal? Or, I mean, again, are you saying it because his name is Mustafa Ali and they're in the Middle East, and so it's like that and if that's true, and I'm not trying to pick on you, Dylan, but if that's just where you're at, that's what I'm saying that they are trying to get away from, and I appreciate them, which is what I think he wants is, don't again saddle me to I have to represent a certain part of the world and have to be a certain type of character. Let me just be myself, and I might have things about my character that relate far more to Western culture than we're otherwise promoting,
Yeah, he's from Chicago, right?
Chicago.
Right.
He's a former police officer.
Yeah.
So we got a return. We got a couple of returns. We got a trio of returns, depending on how you look at it. JBL shows up, and he didn't come alone. He brought with him Baron Corbin. And let me tell you, JBL shows him how it's done, talking trash about Oklahoma before bringing out Baron Corbin and explaining that Baron Corbin's on Raw because Rey Mysterio went to SmackDown,
Mhm.
and then takes shots at Ziggler for some reason before we get a match. Corbin gets the big return win. Justin, I love that they explained why these roster moves happened, even if it's as simple as Rey went over there, Baron's here now.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I mean, I think I like this JBL Corbin pairing. I like the rub here. I mean, and also it doesn't feel random. It actually feels like JBL and if you followed his career as, Justin Hawk Bradshaw, and then, being a blackjack, and then a part of the APA, and then eventually when he really evolved to what, got him his Hall of Fame credentials, which was being JBL and being a world champion for like a year on SmackDown. I think if you look at his path, similar to Corbin in terms of the evolution of how Baron Corbin went from being kind of a dark kind of misfit character, and he's evolved his look, evolved his skills, and then they both have the same kind of. I think they both battled. I think JBL battled the same thing that Corbin's battled. JBL just did not have to deal with Twitter and social media as a factor in his day. They both kind of battle the public perception of, are they legit? Are they, should they be getting the spot they're getting, the push they're getting? And so I don't know. There's just something about JBL and Corbin, and Jimmy, you refereed during JBL's prime, so I'd love to know your thoughts. This feels like if you were going to attach somebody as being the apprentice to a JBL, that Corbin feels like it makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. And let me tell you something. My old golf partner, JBL, I got to tell you, if there's someone who knows in 2022 how to generate legit heel heat still to this day, and do it in an old school kind of way, it is JBL. It's incredible the amount of heat he can generate, because he got cheered when he came out, but he turned that crowd on a dime. It was incredible. So to pair someone like Baron Corbin, who is very talented, can speak and do a lot of things, with someone like a JBL who in his ear to help him along and help guide him, there's a potential here to, can we get the next generation wrestling god?
They're similar skill set. Yes. They're both former football players. They have that size, but they have that incredible speed and athleticism for their size. There's just something there. And you're right. I mean, JBL came, and he even let himself be cheered. He did his old two-step move that he does when he gets out, and I'd be lying if I had said that I haven't took a shot a time or two at a bar and done the little two-step myself.
Of course.
So he plays into the crowd that wants to cheer him, and then you're right. He just turns it on Oklahoma because he's a Texan through and through, and just a great. And then he continues it on, him and Corey Graves just beating up on Kevin Patrick on commentary. It's just tremendous work.
It was interesting hearing him come out and hearing musically how you can tell things have changed. And I love JBL's music, but it felt like, oh, this is definitely from a different era, the music versus what most of their music is today. But Jimmy, you said your good friend JBL. I'm giving you homework. You got to ask JBL what was up with those pants, man. Those things were huge.
Well, I think JBL's lost a little weight.
A little,
yeah,
a lot of weight.
Yeah. He may have had to crank the belt a couple of notches more, maybe add a few holes, but he's in great shape, and he's still, I still see those pictures of him on the golf course, greatest day ever, and
I just had to poke.
Jimmy, I would love to be part of a foursome on the golf course with you and JBL. I don't even care who the fourth person is, but I would. Oh my god!
I'm right here. I don't get an invite.
Fine, Jack and I would like to be part of a foursome with you and JBL.
We're going to
be a tremendous
quadruple J. It'll be quadruple J.
Oh my god!
I'm not a good golfer, so we're in trouble, Justin.
We can hit 18 during the day, and then we can have a quadruple J podcast at the night. I think that would be a spectacular day. The people would want it.
Yeah, we got to book it now.
Oh yeah, it needs to happen.
But I loved it. I thought this was a win for everyone involved. I don't know what the plan is with Ziggler, if this is sort of Ziggler's fate at this point, or if there's plans for him in the future. But as far as Corbin and JBL, I just echo your guys' thoughts. Great. all in. Buy now. Happy about it.
And you could tell Corbin's happy about it too. That's for sure.
Happy Corbin. I like this Baron Corbin again, by the way.
Yes.
But we got Omos and MVP backstage. Monsters aren't real, but giants are. Justin, I feel like this is just old school wrestling dream match.
Yeah.
Upcoming eventually. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm very curious of how it gets booked, who wins, how they do it. But yeah, I have no problem with this. I like, and again, I like, I saw him and MVP show up in the crowd during Braun's match on SmackDown, and I like the way, as we just talked about a minute ago with Corbin and Ray, I like the way that we are maneuvering the pieces. Okay, this guy works better over here on Raw. This is good over here in SmackDown. I like that we're doing this, but we're just making it make sense. We're not like, we're just, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but we're not like in the past, we've gone through so many hoops. We jumped through so many hoops to do a draft and do a this and all this explanation. It's like, we really don't need this. Just tell me this guy moved to this one, like, whatever. Like, we don't need to, we don't need to have a draft. There was rumor and that there was going to be a draft this October. I'm glad that we're in October. There's no draft because we don't need that. You don't need all that. I'm just happy. So this is great for me.
Yeah. Jimmy, I don't know if there's much to dissect from this, but I will notice, you notice that the shot was always like waist up of Omos, and it's because JBL took his pants.
That may have been what the problem was. You never know. And you know what? And to Justin's point, yeah, the thing I'm finding intriguing about this is you can make a case for either guy winning this match and the other one not getting damaged by it at all. Again, guys can get over without going over. And this is a perfect example where they've got me intrigued into seeing where they go with this and what happens afterwards.
What I love about it too is as soon as they were both on the roster, we all thought, when are we going to see Omos versus Braun? So as the great poet Dave Bautista once said, give me what I want. We've got a match. AJ Styles versus Dominik Mysterio, back and forth. But in the end, Judgment Day gets involved and Dom gets the roll-up win. Jimmy Korderas, when was the last time we saw an upset this big?
I wish I could tell you. It's just I would just wish it wasn't with the dreaded deadly roll-up.
The most dangerous move in wrestling.
I wish there was a different ending. I wish I could give you one better right now, but it just other than that, I thought the match was really good. Dominik seemed to be in a comfort zone, especially in there with someone like an AJ Styles. You know what I mean? So, and let's put it this way: you talk about huge wins for someone. This is probably the biggest win for anybody, and I don't know how long. I wish I could put, I wish I could, pick a match out of my head to compare it to, but this is huge. And like I said, Dom seems like he's in a comfort zone right now. He seems to be finding his way. And this was a big boost up for him.
Justin, go ahead.
Oh, no. If you got something to say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think someone said it in the chat earlier, and I apologize. I didn't get the name, but is Dom making the case for a breakout star of the year?
Maybe, quite possibly. I mean, he looks comfortable, and to Jimmy's point, I look at everything right now. Again, I'm glad they separated he and Ray, because keep both of them on TV so we can keep their momentum and their stock up, but keep them separated. This buys us time. Excuse me. With them on separate brands, we can now realistically actually book a Dom versus Ray WrestleMania match. Had Ray stayed on the same brand, unless they wrote Ray off of TV for injury, it would have been very awkward to delay that match that long. But now I feel like, I feel like right now, every match that Dom has on TV or just house show, it's all training camp. It's all practice. All the reps are there for the purpose of having him ready for WrestleMania with his father. That's what I feel like we're doing. And so him getting a win tonight was exactly what should happen. An upset win on an AJ Styles. To Jimmy's point, this is why Jimmy and I work so well together. It's like we're finishing some other thoughts here. I agree. Rather than having the distraction and having Dom just roll AJ up schoolboy style, up to this point, Dom has just been using the 619 at first as paying homage, to, paying tribute to his dad, and then now it's an insult. Establish something new for Dom. Establish a new finisher, whatever it is. This would have been the perfect time to start to establish that, where AJ gets a distraction, whatever, and then Dom hits him with whatever new finisher is. Start to establish that new finisher so Dom can hit it by hook or by crook, and so now Dom has something in his arsenal that's his own up against his dad inevitably. So that was my same complaint I wrote down was Dom getting the win's the right choice. Why a schoolboy? Why not establish something new?
And just for the shout out, it was Trust Almighty in the chat whose comment I totally ripped off there. So thank you, Trust Almighty, for letting me use your thought for the show here. I do think I think in two things what makes this great is one, I think that it shows that there's consequences. What I like about this is with Ray leaving Raw, like instead of just, he beat me, I guess we're just going to pretend like we both don't go to the same job anymore. Like he left. And I love that there's actually a consequence to that. But also, if you're Rey Mysterio, I was thinking to myself, and you're like, I want to make sure Dom is taken care of. He's now left the brand. What are they doing with Dom? Well, he's getting a win over AJ Styles. Even if he didn't win, he's working with AJ Styles, so they're taking care of him. Plus, he's got the win. If I'm Ray, right off the bat, I'm thinking, okay, I can breathe easy. I don't need to stress out. They're taking care of him.
And layup booking opportunity. Everybody can favorite it from the October 17th edition of this post-Raw podcast. Layup is Dom absolutely does something dastardly to eliminate Ray in the Royal Rumble.
Oh, yes.
Maybe Dom's already eliminated and he comes back in and eliminates Ray or whatever. But Dom needs to do something, as despicable and as lowbrow possible to boot his father from the Rumble match.
That will get such a reaction. I can tell already at the Royal Rumble, the crowd will go nuts at that. Like they will boo the house down. It'll be great. Absolutely. That'll be such good stuff. Something that had me booing the house down tonight. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to go through all their segments real quick here, but the Miz, something happened with the Miz. Miz says he slipped and hurt his knee and he can't have his match. And he's going to sue the venue, but Johnny Gargano scares him and he stands up and his knee is fine. I appreciate all this. Is great. Then later, Gargano says you can end all this by telling the truth. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. We're getting more story here. Then the match comes, and Miz just lays out Loomis, and we don't get the match. And I'm still wondering what's going on. Later, Gargano does push things forward a little bit by implying that something happened that will get Miz canceled, and he's going to blow the whistle on him. So we're starting to get some story here. But Justin, I thought I was going to get the full deal here tonight. I feel like the rug was pulled out from under me here. I wanted answers.
Well, I did too, and that's a good sign. That's a good sign. I've been preaching that we need to. Why am I cheering Loomis? Why is he doing this? Johnny went as far to say is like, look, Miz, you could be canceled, you could lose your house and your job and everything. So like that was a good start of like, okay, something really bad happened in the past. And so that's why we need to be cheering for Dexter to get his retribution. So that was good. Seeing Miz get that much, getting scared. And so he attacks Dexter in a very barbaric way, chair shots from behind or whatever. So this is good. Continue to slow play it. It would have been one thing if he does that to Dexter and then Dexter rises back up and a half hour later, we actually do have to get the main event. But no, we don't need to. Let this continue to play out. Finally, I feel good talking about this story for the first time in weeks because I feel like they have a plan in mind that's going to, give justification to what they've been doing. So I was okay with this. And again, feeling that way, Jack, that's the way you should feel. You should be clamoring for next week to see what happens next.
And then I'm going to get the dog show.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
But Jimmy, what can they do? I'm very curious. And this is in a good, now it's definitely a good way. They're implying that he could be canceled. Like they're implying some pretty heavy things that might be involved with this. I have no idea what they could say, they would say he did that could also line up to him being canceled. Because they could say anything, but like what they actually say he did. I'm very fascinated. Any projections, any guesses on what it could be?
No, I don't know what it could be that would be that devastating that it would get him canceled and lose his house and the whole bit like that. But I'm thinking that maybe it has something to do with Maurice and maybe some shenanigans that went on behind her back or something like that. Maybe they can go that direction. I don't know, but that just doesn't seem to fit this story. And
Right.
It doesn't seem to fit with Dexter Lumis for some reason. You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe I wish I could come up with something creative right now, but I feel bad that I can't. But like Justin, I am looking forward to see what happens. And you can carry this on where for at least a couple of weeks, this match is being, advertised to take place, and Miz seems to finagle his way out of it, getting to the point where it looks like Gargano's going to stooge off whatever it is he wants to stooge off, blow the whistle. Sorry, not stooge off, and Miz takes out Gargano too. So it's setting up a feud for after whatever happens with Dexter Lumis as well. So I like that too, but I'm curious to see where this story goes, and they're, in my opinion, they're doing it right to keep me interested to see what happens next.
Yeah, I was sitting there thinking about this, okay, Dexter Lumis is like, Dexter Lumis even had like some like kind of sci-fi, kind of almost Undertaker Bray Wyatt kind of matches and things in NXT. So he's kind of supernatural. So it's not like he and the Miz are gonna run in the same circles. It's not like we're gonna find out like, oh, the Miz blocked Dexter Lumis from a Hollywood audition. So then it's like, all right, what do we know about Dexter Lumis? The only human thing about him has been Indy Hartwell. Has been his relationship there. So to Jimmy's point, if maybe the Miz made a pass at Indy she turned him down, and then the Miz was, if they want to go in this direction, this would be a delicate direction to go in, but if they wanted to go in the direction of the Miz, just essentially being disrespectful to Indy, and Lumis is seeking revenge, and Lumis does not feel bad about stalking Miz at his house because Miz was, had predator behavior to Indy, whatever. That's the only thing I could even think that would fall in line with what we've seen in current WWE storyline without them creating a whole new backstory.
Right.
Without them creating Dexter has a sister and the Miz disrespected his. If we want to just go with what they've already took TV time to establish, which is, Dexter and Indy, that would be something we could maybe play off of.
Do we think, and this is, do you think the character Miz, and this is maybe overthinking it, but whatever, Miz seems to act like he doesn't know what Johnny's talking about. So do we think that the character Miz doesn't really know what Johnny's talking about, or is he playing dumb, if that makes sense? Like, is it something that maybe Miz forgot, or do we think that he knows what he did, but he's just trying to play it dumb? Again, maybe I'm overthinking it, but.
Well, but if he forgot,
like, because he's a big Hollywood star, maybe he doesn't even remember that he treated Indy terribly.
No, I think it's more along the lines of Miz doesn't believe anything he does is wrong.
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Because
you know what I mean? He's that kind of a heel.
Yeah, because exactly, Jimmy. Because if the Miz forgot, that kind of takes the heat away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's either he's lying through his teeth, there's heat there. Or if he's so despicable, he can't see that his actions were deplorable, whatever those actions were. That's heat there.
Right.
Yeah, everyone in the chat has their ideas, but I'm not reading it on the air. I see what you guys are saying. But we get to the final part of the show, and we get a segment and a match. Elias comes back. We finally get Elias back, and man, his beard grew back fast. His hair grew fast. But he gets the crowd behind him. Riddle comes out. Eventually, Elias is going to sing, but then Rollins cuts him off. That leads to the Rollins versus Riddle match, in which case Elias gets involved. That accidentally allows Rollins to get the win, and Rollins stomps Riddle, stomps Elias, but then Ali chases him off. Justin, this is a very messy way to end the show as far as lots of stuff happening here. Are they making the right decision, making Elias someone we're supposed to cheer for here, or should he go back to being his making fun of the hometown self?
I think this is worth a try because I think what they're doing here in this whole segment is what a super chat talked about earlier, which was, questioning the fact that Reigns and the world title is over on SmackDown. What they're doing on Raw is they're trying to elevate on Raw. We're trying to elevate having some key baby faces in Riddle and Elias and Ali. Kevin Owens wasn't around tonight, but he's won. And then we're trying to build. We're trying to build the Miz. We're trying to build Rollins. So I'm okay with this tonight. There was a point in the match where I actually thought, look, they're giving it the main event spot, the main event ring introductions. Maybe Riddle does take this. I didn't know. So I'm okay. I think they're doing their best to really try to elevate. And if the U.S. title is going to be the title, the highest ranking title on Raw, they're really trying to elevate the space. And look, the final thing they said as Rollins is standing in the crowd, having ran like a scalded dog, is the amount of enemies that he has and the amount of people that are coming after him. And that's what you want. That's good creative because that gives you so many avenues of people challenging, and then the baby faces bumping into each other inadvertently trying to get to them. And so overall, I like what they did here tonight with Ali, with Rollins, with Riddle. I don't know. I thought this was well done. This buys them a lot of creative options. And again, one thing we've not seen since this creative takeover, thank God, is we're not getting rematches week after week. And that's and doing things like this continues that possibility to where you have so many fresh matchups that make sense.
Jimmy, this is kind of as Justin's saying this, I'm starting to realize it is very smart, and that it's very similar to Roman Reigns in a lot of ways, where he's found himself with a million different challengers, but that keeps the title scene fresh. And Rollins, day one, seems to have 4 people that all want a shot at him.
Right. And the more people that want and the more people that want a shot at a title make that title feel that much more important, like Justin said. And it's working here. And someone like Mustafa Ali, earlier in the show, I said that he hasn't got me invested yet. The run in here maybe got me a little more invested. He's not quite there yet in my eyes yet, but it did get me a little more invested. So maybe over weeks and weeks of building, I will be on board with that Mustafa Ali as a, deep, babyface threat to a champion, Seth Rollins, a U.S. championship. And again, like we said, the more people that want that title just means that much more. And they're setting different layers and stories that are possibly being told here now with Elias, with Mustafa Ali, with Seth, and with Matt Riddle. So there's a lot going on, but at the same time, it's making you want to tune in to find out where these different layers and where these different directions head. The
whole time until Elias hit Seth Rollins, I was like, Elias is going to attack Riddle, isn't he? That's why the whole time I was waiting for that. But then I was also like, that was kind of a jerky thing to do, to hit Seth Rollins. You're supposed to be a good guy, Elias, but I guess Elias doesn't play by the rules. Elias does things his own way. I was excited to see Elias. I think he's fantastic. Again, an open-ended way to end the show. I thought this was a fantastic show. I never would have guessed that all the creative folks were out. I thought this was great. Any final thoughts? Justin, we'll start with you. Final thoughts on this week's episode?
No, another well-done episode. It wasn't the best one they've done in recent weeks. Definitely wasn't the worst. There was a lot to take away from it. Things are being elevated. Things are being progressed. Layers of story are being added. They're making this, again, it's a paid show. When I say paid show, the shows in Saudi mean they are already getting tens of millions of dollars for them. So they've made their money. So it's not like, oh, we have to add this match to increase the gate or the buy rate or anything like that. It's a show you could otherwise just say, but they're putting effort into making it relevant to the storylines. And then what happens there is going to affect what we set up for Survivor Series in November, which of course has a new fresh coat of paint with the War Games that we know. So, I mean, I think that they're moving in a strong direction right now. It's really positive. There are things to critique, which we have touched on some of them. It's positive though. It makes tuning in every Monday feel worth it, because I want to find out what's the next. Why does Gargano know what the thing is that Miz did to Dexter? Again, back to the Indy thing. Indy Hartwell is part of the way with Gargano. So, like, we can fantasy book, but maybe we're wrong, maybe we're right. But there's just it makes you tune in because we're now at a point right now with Raw and SmackDown to where if you don't tune in, if you decide I'm going to skip this one, you are going to miss things. And for weekly episodic television, that's the number one consequence you can offer the audience is don't tune in. You're going to miss out and you're going to be lost the next week.
And there's something like pro wrestling too. And Jimmy, I want to get your final thoughts here as well. Where that is so important is during the days, there's days where I used to say it doesn't matter because plans changed all the time. So like if your favorite lost, it doesn't matter. They could go on a win streak next week. But because things matter and because things do lead to stuff, now it's like I feel like I can root for certain wrestlers. And if they lose, I'll be bummed. But it just makes me go, but what's next for them? Instead of, okay, I guess my favorite's not winning. And you can just see in the numbers and everything else, the momentum is growing. WWE is cooking right now. I'm enjoying it. But Jimmy, overall thoughts?
Overall thoughts. I think, like Justin said, it's very enjoyable television now. If for a while there it was like 3 hours on a Monday night, you're going, oh boy, I got to sit there for the 3 hours. Now, you're getting good in-ring action. You're getting good storytelling. You're getting entertaining, different kinds of segments. When you talk about, I know this pisses a lot of people off, especially when they do it in the other company. Pro wrestling is sports entertainment. It's intertwined. They're the same thing. And when Vince McMahon used to say back in the day, pro wrestling is like a variety show, he was not wrong because you need different layers, different elements, different types of stories being told. You need a little darkness. You need a little levity. We're getting a little bit of everything, but we're getting a lot of good in-ring action right now. The matches actually are pretty good. So I think overall they're going in a positive direction. They keep taking steps forward every week. And like Justin said also, I look forward to tuning in to see what happens next to all the different superstars, whether it is Gargano, whether it is Miz, to see what happens with Miz, and will Dexter Lumis finally get his hands on him. Now I want to see what happens with Baron Corbin and his progression with JBL, and will JBL be showing up every week? Because we talked about Bailey on commentary, JBL on commentary, just too much. So, and Seth Rollins, and they've got a list of guys who could really be the top guy on that brand.
Yeah, Raw, I think weekly has been my favorite wrestling show on network television for kind of since Triple H took over. Like it's just been, even though it's 3 hours, I'm like, this is a great show.
Yeah, and real quick, back to the JBL and commentary. Dynamite does this where Dynamite has a 3-man booth all the time, and they always, Regal comes out, Regal joins commentary and whatever. And if 3 is crowded, 4 is a freaking mess. I like that too. Raw's going back to just being 2 guys regularly, but then when you add that third, whether it's Bailey or JBL, it's okay for that little dose. You have the heel, the heel and Corey, of course, just sucking up to that heel guest. Everybody rags on Kevin. It works versus when you had, the Byron, Jimmy, Corey plus. I don't know. It makes sense. So much right now with Raw and SmackDown. It's just it feels like we are. Feels like they are, and we are just basking in the glory.
Right.
Shout out Keith Lee. It feels like they are correcting or righting so many wrongs. They are just undoing and getting back to like this makes sense for this reason because, and now we're going to apply it based upon the talent that we have. And if somebody's listening and thinks that we're being whatever, all I can say is we sat through some long 3-hour shows, and it is just refreshing to see this approach to these WWE shows.
Yeah, it's been fantastic stuff. Thank you guys, everyone who's been listening. Again, 5-star reviews mean the world. Leave a comment on the YouTube channel. I try to respond to some of them when I see them as well. Always appreciate that. 5-star reviews, likes, shares, and stuff like that. And as Justin always likes to add, let us know where you're listening because it's always fun to know that kind of stuff. But thank you to everyone in the chat. Ricky, Dylan, Baby, Dream, Giovanna. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before. Good to see you. Stalking you. Dylan, Iron Med VR, and everyone else, and Issa, if you're still lurking. But before we go, Justin, where can the world find you online and all the stuff you're working on?
At Justin LaBar, hit me up. Happy to talk to you there. I have a rule though: if you are rude and you are rude without any profile picture that is yourself, I do not acknowledge you. So make sure if you're going to be rude, have a picture of yourself so I can identify you in a crowd.
There is nothing that's going to get you ignored faster than not having a picture of yourself on your handle.
Right.
Just throwing it out there. But Jimmy, where can the world find you online?
Obviously, you can find me here on Wrestling Inc. Mondays and usually on Wednesdays, but not this week. No Wednesday this week. And you can find me from Monday to Friday on all my social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, doing my ref and rants, where I have a 1-minute video. It's not long, and I get to critique something. This week, though, is going to be a little different. I'm going to try and give a week of positive rants, if I can do that. Just see if I can find something positive.
Is it a rant if you're positive?
Yeah, because some people don't like the stuff I like.
Yeah, I don't know if that counts as a rant. I feel like that's
called a sermon.
I was just gonna say that. That's a sermon.
I'm just gonna call it a positive rant. How's that?
Yeah, you're gonna. Jimmy's like, nah, I'm not changing it.
Nah.
You're preaching.
I've already got the hashtag out there. I can't change it now.
It's too late. Well, you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. If you're in Southern California, I'm going to be doing commentary for Santino Brothers Night of the Human Death Match on Saturday. That should be quite a show. So if you can make it, come on by. But otherwise, that does it for us. That does it for the Wrestling crew. Make sure to tune in to follow at Wrestling for all the news. Tune in tomorrow for the after show for NXT and AEW. How are you guys doing that? Are you just doing both?
I'm not on it tomorrow night.
No, I'm not either. No, I'm not the Tuesday night guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tune in. You'll find out when we do how they're doing the after shows for AEW and NXT. But also tune in Friday for the after SmackDown and Rampage shows. That does it for us. We'll see you guys